Okay, I'm joined by Safia Qureshi, the CEO of CupClub. Thank you for joining me, Safia.
Hi, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and it is a Friday evening, as we were just saying, so thank you for taking the time. Um, I think it's gonna be a really interesting conversation, and really the reason I wanted to speak with you
Yeah.
is it's a site or a stat I saw on your site, which is that over 14 million disposable coffee cups are used every day, and
Yeah.
that's just in the UK. So that's, if I'm not mistaken, if I did my math
Yeah,
correctly,
that's right.
that's like 1.5 billion or something per year.
Yeah, and the global is 250 billion.
It's crazy, and only 1% are being recycled. And so what you're trying to do is actually essentially remove all of those cups from being used at
Sure,
all.
sure.
Before we jump into it, I'm curious to know, where exactly are you taking this call from?
So I'm in London. This is actually my home studio. So you're seeing my architecture books, design books, travel books.
Yeah.
I think there's a Robert Fisk back there. There's some random other books. So hopefully viewers are finding this semi-interesting and intriguing to get to know some background.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is home studio. So home, work from home, sometimes remotely if I have to. Got my little station.
Yeah, excellent. I'm in my home studio as well, which basically consists of my computer being turned back to a wall. I put a plant here to make it look eco-friendly. But yes, I'm at my living room
Great.
table. So home studio is the way to go forward, I think.
That's where it all started. I'm staring at my kitchen table, which is just there.
There you
So
go.
yeah,
So yeah, homegrown.
the origins.
Exactly right.
Brilliant.
So I'd love to jump into it, and I think a really
Oh,
great
that's
way to
good.
start is actually to kind of ask the question that's always asked at any networking event. Essentially, rather than saying "What do you do?" I'm curious to know what your two-sentence elevator pitch about Cup Club is.
Right. Okay. To who though? Like, who would be
Good
the audience for this particular?
question.
Yeah.
Let's say you don't know who I am, or perhaps the someone who just kind of heard about you for a second. They're like, huh, Cup Club. Okay, what is that?
Okay. Okay. So my 2 minute, 2 minute or 2 seconds. So two
Two
minutes.
sentence.
Yeah. Two sentence
Yeah, so nice.
elevator pitch would be, um, we're on a mission to eliminate single-use plastics by building one of the best food systems in the world. That includes a returnable packaging system to eliminate waste, so a zero waste future, starting with drinks.
Wow.
Um, so if anybody wants to understand, well, cups, it's the first product. If you see what I mean, it's not all of it. The club model is to allow for many different types of products and, to come along and enter. But certainly we know that the future should be about zero waste. It should
Hmm.
be less about this high consumerism impact, and we know how to do this. It's genuinely not very complex, and so yeah, that's more than 2 seconds, two sentences for sure.
Two, yeah, each sentence had a lot of commas, so perfect. It fit. So the interesting thing, and we were talking about this about being 1% being recycled. One thing I noticed from reading about Cup Club is only 2% of consumers own a reusable cup. I
Right. So exactly. So
Yeah.
you've probably heard a lot of marketing and a lot of communications from various brands saying, "Hey, we've got a lot of people who come in, and we've got options. We get discounts for people who want to come and bring in their own thing."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the data will tell you that's a 98% split. So the reality of how many people actually take that offer up is very small.
Yeah, exactly.
Yet the proportion of the communications behind that is so intriguingly large, and you wonder, if it's so amazing, why isn't everybody doing it? And
Yeah, exactly. And
so yeah,
admittedly, I have more than one reusable cup,
right,
and the number of
yeah,
times I've used it.
it's bullet. It's sitting in a cupboard shelf
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. It's tucked behind things, and it's hard
Yeah,
to get to. And especially, and I know you've said this before, oftentimes going to somewhere like a coffee shop is
yeah,
sometimes it's accidental, so you don't really plan for it.
Sure.
And I'm not going to be carrying this thing around with me all day, every day in my backpack. I mean, that's not very convenient.
No, it's not. And I always crack this joke. It's quite a popular one. It's basically something as simple as saying the future isn't about carrying a picnic set with you.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't our future from our perspective. It's not saying to somebody, carry your own water bottle, carry your own reusable cup, and your own food box, and also your knives and your sporks or your
Yeah.
knives and forks with you. And that's absurd. That's insane. And actually, this is a future that we see as a very plausible future,
Mm.
where you purchase something, you're given the drink, the food, whatever it is, in a reusable to-go container. It's as simple as that. And our headache is making that happen and producing the product and technology and making it a financially viable business model for all of the brands to be participating in this.
And
That's our job.
so,
So for
if,
consumer, it's super easy.
yeah, and if we dig into that exactly a little bit further, because I think it's an interesting idea that sort of borrows from other concepts and is making it
Yeah.
specifically for reusable cups, and then you'll grow it from there, as you were saying. So basically, CupClub, what it is, in the way I understood it, is there are reusable cups that, like a coffee shop, for example, has, or you can go to a university. You can do it in stadiums,
Yeah.
and rather than buying a plastic or paper cup,
Yeah.
the uh, the people actually give you a cup that you
Yeah.
use, and then you can return it at a station somewhere placed around
Sure.
somewhere. Is
Any
that
network.
generally the idea?
Yeah, it's a network. So you can buy within any of the participating businesses, retailers, whether they're high street or mainstream cafes or
Hmm.
stores, or you can find CupClub in HQ offices and airports and um, shopping malls, in major events, parks, cinemas. That's kind of us connecting all of those dots.
Yeah.
Where do you already get a coffee? So imagine where your experiences of having a coffee. We have a solution to service that. So the idea is that you can take away from any of those locations and return to any of those locations.
Gotcha. And so what are the cups actually made from?
Right. So we went through actually a very extensive research process into understanding the material, what was beneficial from a consumer uptake perspective, from a just a practicality perspective, so operational,
Hmm.
supply chain, sourcing, energy, also recyclability at end of life perspective. Um, and a lot of the functional things, such as, do people like to, what material would they be okay with drinking from? So those kind of things. So interestingly, when we looked across and we tested everything from stainless steel, aluminium, I think we even looked at hemp. We looked at obviously ceramics, glass. Then we looked at plant-based alternative plastics. We also then looked at regular plastics. And we did this whole matrix to figure out, well, which material is the best based on all of these requirements. So not just the consumer's requirements, but we have to think of all the stakeholders. And then also from a carbon footprint perspective.
Yeah.
So interestingly, from the research that we gathered from consumers, they're sort of used to drinking from paper plastic. So it's very light. And remember, when you are designing for change or anything, that this is definitely a change, it's a step
Hmm.
change, not even like an incremental tiny change. Whenever you're designing for that, what you're trying to do is reduce the number of changes you're making as much as you can. So you can't. I mean, it's really hard to suddenly completely evolve a new system into things that nobody recognizes. Like there's no incremental part of it whatsoever. So we wanted to try and look at a material that an individual wouldn't feel that this is so removed from what I'm used to
Hmm.
that I don't enjoy this, or I don't, why am I having to pick this option?
Yeah.
So interestingly, the research said that people don't like drinking from metal because of the metallic feel against for many reasons: the teeth, the metal feel when you put it to your mouth, the temperature that it obviously has a higher absorption on immediate temperature. But in some other aspects, so steel and aluminium are kind of attractive from just a pure material perspective. And then, of course, comparing that to what retailers might need from that material, their evaluation was also very different. Then from a manufacturing perspective, there's not a lot of capabilities that you can, that are available to you from actual sort of production perspective for metal. It's not injection moldable. It's harder to do anything that can really engineer. And for the requirements that we had to connect all our packaging to the web, which meant that there was a requirement, right? So that isolated and only gave us a very small window of potential technologies, which we knew wasn't scalable. So we rattled it down and we got to a couple of options that we felt were the strongest. And we've decided that currently, based on the market and where we are, we're using the most commonly and widely recyclable plastics available to us, which are high grade food plastics. So we are using polypropylene for our cups, and we're using low density polyethylene for our lids.
And so all of this is really recyclable.
This is all 100% recyclable. And so that fits in very well. If you think about the long-term picture for us was, how do we use these products to make new products? How do we make this more regenerative? Our future hopefully will be to remove all fossil fuel materials from our supply chain, 100% for me. That's an important feature. However, when we tested a lot of the plant-based options that we genuinely were putting anything into our molds to see what would work, and looking at this. These particular materials weren't surviving for the number of reuses that we require this product to have. So from a carbon perspective, it is important to have a product in circulation for as long as possible, so that you can maximize all that embodied energy, right? So I don't want to just be able to use my product 30 times, 50 times. That's not a lot of reuse. I would like to design products that can be used for months on end, and they retain their quality, and they're able to be sent through the system multiple times. So we are engineering. I mean, I'd like to see a future where we find plant-based alternatives for the materials we have that can withstand multi-use, like truly. So that's our vision. And in the interim, we are moving forward with materials that we know have a very high value within a supply chain for recyclability.
And how do you keep track of how many times each cup was used?
Right. So the beauty of having technology embedded in each product is, you know, how many times it's gone round in a reuse circuit. So and when I say each product, as in the lid has its own RFID, the cup has its own RFID, our cases have their own RFID. And when it's distributed, so when it gets to a customer, it's logged, okay, location, time, customer A. Then when a consumer takes it away, the log for that ID, then below that will say, okay, then timestamp this, now it's with a consumer. Then when that consumer returns it to a case and we collect it, it says, okay, now we have collected it, timestamp, blah, 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 and it comes back to us, where it's then unpacked, washed and sanitized, packed, and sent back out the next day. So that's one loop. And we are then able to realistically know how many times each product is reused. And we've measured our entire supply chain. So we actually brought in some consultants to look at our system and service and measure how much CO2 we save on a per use basis. And so then we calculate for a customer or a consumer We can
Oh,
tell them
cool.
exactly how much on an individual level they have saved in CO2 by opting in for CupClub, and then also on a customer level, how much CO2 they have saved by serving a consumer with one of our products versus a disposable.
Do you have any kind of figures that you can throw out, generally speaking? I
Uh,
have you have this incredible sustainability report from 2018 on your website. It's like how many?
right,
I'm just looking at it right now. It's like 50 pages long or something.
right. So yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
the those are our team of consultants who we brought in to
It's
contribute that.
incredible. It's so in depth. You just
Yeah.
scroll, 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 and like the little bar on the side isn't really moving, and there's just so much information.
Well, it's ISO certification, so you can't really mess around with a life
Yeah.
cycle assessment. It only you can only produce it if you have real data. It's not hypothetical. There's no like let's make this up and just throw some numbers at it. You know, a
Hmm.
consultancy that that we worked with, which was amazing. They're Mark and Rob. They're a great team. And when we started, it was quite a lot of work for us because we had to gather all of this data. So they asked for about 90 data sets. And we had to, from the moment where the material is sourced, actual plastics, where they come from, to the origin, you have to start from the origin of the product through to where is that plastic actually moved, where is your manufacturing hub, through to, okay, well, once it's made, where does it then get distributed to? And then once it arrives there, how is it actually managed? So how is it washed? What are the machines? What are the salts? How much water? How much energy? Then what vehicles is it put in? Which vehicle type is it? And what fuel does the vehicle use? And what is the distance radius that those vehicles are going to be moving? And then when the product is actually collected, when it's brought back, and then how many times are you expecting this to work?
And
And then we
all of
compare that with the equivalent of a single-use cup times the number of reuses that we get.
what I'm curious about, and you mentioned this at the beginning, is so I've now gotten a cup from
Sure.
coffee shop, and I'm wandering around. Maybe I live in London. This is my London home studio, so I go on the tube, for example, and
Yeah.
then I appear in Oxford Circus, and it's busy, crowded, wandering around. I'm done with my coffee. Where do I put it?
Any of that network that I mentioned. So
Hmm.
we have a similar, you could compare CupClub to any on-the-go product that you've borrowed from any location. So think of like e-scooters or some kind of like e-bike, anything where you have a start and stop
Yeah.
journey. Now, some of those e-scooter companies, you can just drop them anywhere. It's not an issue. But where there's a requirement to find a specific spot, you do all of that from the start to the end in-app. And we
Mm.
have exactly the same offer. So our product offer to consumers, and then obviously we add the retailer locations in, is that you have to be a real digital person to be able to use this service. So you download, put your details in, then you scan your QR at checkout, and then you can see in your dashboard how many products you have, and then off you go. And then when you're done, you basically can go back in app and see where the location drop points are and return the product. So it'll show you the nearest 3 or 4 or however you want to see it.
Hmm.
Um, and we give people the ability to return it within a certain amount of time or keep it and then purchase the product as well. It's up to them.
Gotcha. So basically, it sounds like their card is probably tied to the app, so that if they don't return it, then they
Yes.
buy it.
Yes, basically. And it's free otherwise if they return it.
Hmm. So I've heard you said that I've heard you say basically that when I buy a coffee or any other drink at a
Yeah.
participating retailer, I'm given the choice, right? Of do you want a reusable cup or do you want a disposable one?
Sure.
So that's the choice that I'm given, and I can just sign up right then and there.
Yeah. You just download, off you go. It takes literally 2 seconds.
Yeah, super easy.
It's designed for speed. So, I mean, the some retailers actually are not using single use at all. They've gone all zero waste stores, and they're like, that's their vision. They're like, we're not interested in even dispensing any more disposable packaging, and that's a really bold mission. We're seeing more and more brands, interestingly, in the US decide that, and that's commendable.
Yeah.
So and that's public knowledge, so they would already know, okay, you're not going to get a to-go disposable cup with so and so brands, so that when they do go in and they get the option of takeaway, it's as convenient as it kind of was before. The only difference is you have to return it. It's about densification. So densification you always have edge peripherals in every dense network where the demand isn't as high, or people certainly there are very few cafes or etc. in certain more rural fringes, and usually that's where your network would start to bleed and end.
Yeah.
So if you were beyond any of those fringe edges and you went off, the likelihood of you being able to return it anywhere outside that is quite low. You'd have to come back more into the central dense network area.
Makes sense. And I mean, you have enough time to do that because it doesn't have to be returned within like 20 minutes. So
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So you can sort that out. You can manage that yourself. That's not a problem.
Yeah. And so once it's actually returned, it sits in a special case, and then it gets picked up. And where exactly is it cleaned?
So we have our own supply chain set up to collect, sanitize, wash, dry, and get the product back within 24 hours.
That's quick.
Yeah.
Is there ever a concern from anyone about the cleanliness of the product, or everyone's?
No, our suppliers, the way that we've set it up, it's like the same as any restaurant hospitality standard. We adhere to the same standards. It's not rocket science. It's an expectation that everybody has, that something that I pick up and that I use for any kind of food and beverage is to a certain requirement of hygiene standards, etc. So we understand that, and we would expect the same. If I was somebody who was a stranger coming to this, that's kind of what I would want to see. So our certification process is quite intense in the sense that we only bring in partners and suppliers that already do this for other types of products. And
Gotcha.
so they have expertise in this.
Makes sense. So you mentioned zero waste at the very, very beginning, and that's essentially what we're doing here. And there's this term, which I know that you've said before, circular economy, and you've actually won the Ellen MacArthur Award for that not too long ago, which Ellen MacArthur is one of the kind of proponents for the circular economy. I found that it can be a little bit tricky to explain the circular economy in like 5 words. But what is this? Maybe you can do it. What's the circular economy?
It's regenerative systems. So things that are non-linear, kind of, you could visually imagine it, something that's going to come back onto itself. So hence circular. And the economy part is the that enable that to be a system which A, works, obviously, B, that has a value potential for all stakeholders. And so that's maybe the economy part. But yeah, it just comes back into itself. There's of course it depends what specifically you are turning into essentially a service. Another way to say it is it is a servitization or of some sort. There are many options to that. It might not be relevant for every particular circular economy model. But yeah, that's a basic principle behind it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Would recycling count as part of the circular economy? So instead of reusing, as you're saying, couldn't we just like take a cup, recycle it, and then turn it into maybe a new cup or something else?
Right. So 2 things that measure impact. One is what the circular economy, the measurement for how valuable your system or product or service might be compared to others. If it's measured under the CE principle, it's MCI, so it's Material Circularity Index. So it's looking at how much value do you get from the actual sort of materials as they are spun around. So and that's actually a measurement from 0 to 1. So a system where you are reusing a product many, many, many times will naturally have a much higher material circularity index. So ours is 0.9 versus a single-use cup, which is 0.1, right? And if you think about it, you can argue that actually both of them, if they're both recycled at the end of life, both of them are technically being reused. You could say that. The difference is that, and I'm going to use an elastic band because it's right in front of me, is that, why not? Let's get
props.
Proppy. Give it a background.
Ooh, lovely.
This is where my background fails because I need to expand this. So if this is the reuse model of CupClub, the reuse model where we have a product that's in circulation many, many, many times. The reuse model of a single use would be like this big or bigger, right? I can't proportionately do it ninefold for you. And it's because the material that somebody will get from a single-use cup at some point will take much longer to get. And it will also be a more complex process than just simply keeping it in one location and servicing it and reusing, right? So when somebody says, well, why don't we just recycle? What they're saying is, I'd like to give the really long version of the potential of something versus let's actually use a very short version. I'm doing long and short because the long version uses more carbon and the short version uses less carbon. So when you're measuring impact, you're measuring MCI because circular economy is not the whole picture. You're measuring MCI, which is Material Circularity Index, and you're also measuring the carbon, which is what an LCA does.
LCA being life cycle.
Assessment. Yes. So that's the main function of a life cycle assessment, is to measure your entire supply chain or whatever you're measuring to see what is your carbon input, output, and then, overall. And so once you've got that, that's great. Then you can look also at your MCI, and if both are performing well, great. But there's two parts to that picture.
Yeah, this is really interesting stuff. It's pretty, I can see how it can get really technical very quickly. And we're, I think, kind of doing general top line stuff so far.
Yeah, let's keep it simple for people. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
At this stage.
There's a point, where even my brain starts to fry a little bit. Yeah. In terms of kind of moving over to the retailers you're working with, I know a little while ago you said that you are looking at, or you were working with John Lewis and Waitrose. I'm a big fan of Waitrose. There's one across the street that I frequent a lot, and I'll have to take a look next time I'm there. Is it basically every Waitrose in London, or is it in a specific region?
Oh no. So we haven't yet in London. You won't find CupClub in retail just yet.
Okay.
And that's a plan at this stage later on in 2020. But no, not yet just yet. So our first retail launch is in the US, which is next month.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so if you're in the Palo Alto area, that's where you'll find us.
Excellent. Well, that's actually where I'm from.
Right, cool.
Yeah, so not too far from Palo Alto. It's about a 15-minute drive. Sorry?
Long way away from home.
Yeah, a bit. But I do love London. But yeah, I'm from the Bay Area, so maybe next time I'm in anywhere in specific we should look for.
So if you frequent one of the major universities there, you will find us there, and then also some of the neighboring cafes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. I remember you were saying
Come on
that.
down. Check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to let my cousin know. She goes to
Oh,
the,
please send like everybody to
yeah.
come, because really, I mean, what we're demonstrating is so CupClub is one of the winners of the Next Gen Challenge. I don't know
Hmm.
if you've heard about it or read about it. It's been funded by Starbucks, McDonald's, Coke, Yum Brands, Nestle, and Wendy's.
Wow, big names.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, it's also something that we naturally have really kind of taken to the next stage with those brands. So this, for us, is a great opportunity to engage with, you know, our audience,
Hmm.
make sure that there is enough of that buy-in and interaction. We're using this particular launch really to hear from everyone. So it's going to be we're partnered up with IDEO, so you might have heard of who they are. They're an innovation firm who we absolutely love, and so there's a team of us who will be doing a lot of the research on the ground, interviewing people, seeing how they like it, what would they change. So it's a really great time to, I guess, come on down and, you know, really give us all the feedback that you might have.
Excellent.
It's the first time that the apps are going to be launched properly, so we've been, of course, testing this a lot behind the scenes, and it's yeah. So really, this is an opportunity to get involved and tell us what you think and what you might want to see and change about it.
Oh man, that's so exciting. You must be getting thrilled right now
Yeah,
about.
it is. Yeah, I'll be out there at 4 or 5 weeks. So
Wow. Yeah, so you're
yeah,
yeah, you'll be there feeling the buzz of Silicon Valley. And
yeah. I mean, we've been going backwards and forwards for about 10 months now. So yeah, I'm well versed.
so that's because I think we'll be publishing this around the time that you'll be actually releasing this. So this will be
Oh, that's great timing. Yeah, for
so
sure.
just for anyone who's listening, that timing should be around mid-February, I guess, of
Exactly.
2020.
Yeah, exactly. Mid-Feb
Cool.
onwards. Yeah, we're launching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And how long is that trial gonna run for?
So it's defined for, I mean, the test period is a month.
Hmm.
We'll be running and adding more and more um, stores, etc., to the network. But the first month is really the most, I guess, fluid, where we'll be listening and hearing from everyone and doing some interviews and taking all the feedback. And then after that, we'll look towards more of a kind of observing the data and really improving this and scaling this up.
I'm kind of going back to the retailers. I'm really interested in knowing the actual proposition to them
Sure.
once this thing is completely off the ground and you're going to retailers in terms of, you know, saving them money, or what is that? I guess what's the pitch that, so if I'm
Okay.
Waitrose or like, you know, some big brand and you're saying to me, this is why you should start using the reusable, join the
Sure.
CupClub. What are the general kind of like top or
The
main?
benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, I mean, there are a couple of things that are happening behind the scenes, which you might or might not have heard about.
Hmm.
Ordinances, bylaws that are being passed on a city level, that are going to be implementing certain charges for single-use packaging, which means that retailers will have to request upfront whether a consumer wants to pay for a 25-cent additional charge in a to-go container that's single-use
Uh,
disposable.
sounds similar to the plastic bag 5p
Exactly.
charge here in London
Exactly.
or the UK, I
So,
guess. Yeah.
well, yeah, and everywhere. I mean,
Hmm.
the single-use plastic, the sort of concept. So this concept isn't new. We know that it works. It's certainly going to impact the industry greatly because you can't hide it in the cost of the product. You can't sort of make it disappear. It has
Yeah.
to be a separate line item that has to exist on somebody's receipt, and it's prompted. So a barista or a retailer or a store owner has to say, sure, would you like to go? Okay, great. And just to let you know, that's an additional 25 cents. Are you okay with that? They have to ask you that.
Hmm. It's funny.
Versus, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because you're the just going back to this plastic bag thing. As you're saying this, I'm thinking that I don't remember the actual number, but since the UK brought in the 5p charge, I think plastic bag usage dropped by like 90%. It was massive. It's
Mm.
just 5p, and you were saying at the very beginning that even if you save like 25 cents or even 50 cents by bringing your own reusable cup, for some reason that isn't enough of a motivational factor for people to do it. But paying 5 cents more for a plastic bag, and no one wants to get a plastic bag anymore. So it's almost like the penalty is more effective than a reward in
Yes,
this.
always. So the psychology of they call it the carrot and the stick. So
Mm,
the psychology of the stick is always a more powerful than the carrot. That's been proven by many. I mean, universities have conducted this experiment. This is fact. So if you are charged extra and told about it, you are more likely to behave differently as a result of that than if you are told you have a discount.
yeah,
Um, Also, the difference is that it will hurt people a bit more in this particular instance because a bag can be replaced with other types of bags.
hmm,
So, and most people have a bag of some description on them most of the time. So you have an option. Okay, and I'm shopping. Don't give me a plastic bag. I'm just going to put it in my rucksack, or I'm going to put it
yeah.
in
Worst case scenario, I'll do one of
it,
these.
or just carry it like
Yeah,
this out, right?
in your shirt.
Can't
Yeah,
do that with a liquid beverage. I
yeah.
mean, it's impossible to do that, and the only option is that you bring in your own, or hey, actually, there's one that will serve you your drink it. The complexity for some cities where it's difficult for a retailer or a cafe to manage someone who brings in their own is again to do with sanitation and washing. So currently the law in some West Coast cities requires a store to, if somebody gives you a reusable container, they require you to not just clean that container, but clean any surface that container comes into contact with.
Wow, that's
It's quite
intense.
it's yeah, it's not the most easily managed product
Yeah, it's not very
for them.
practical. Yeah,
It's not very practical, and I understand that because you don't know someone's hygiene standards. How do you regulate that? So,
yeah,
and I've done it many times. I've taken a dirty cup and I said, "Can you just wash this out?" And it's she or he is washing that certainly and then putting it into a nozzle. And so if you think about the um, the complexity and the concern around that,
yeah. It's legit. I mean,
it's quite serious.
yeah.
So yeah, but I have a
That
solution for that.
that makes the case um,
What we're doing.
yeah, for disposable, but then better yet, no disposable, reuse
Yeah,
it, and
yeah.
that's basically some of the benefits to the retailer is these ordinances coming in, and is that being seen both in the UK and in the US?
Not in the UK. No.
Oh wow, okay, US is leading on that.
Yeah, not in the UK. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe in the future, but no,
So
not
is
yet.
that part of the reason why you're starting in
Yes,
California?
yes,
Makes
yeah,
sense.
for sure. There's three main factors when it comes to what we do. One is legislation, the other is
Hmm.
the economics, and the third is social.
And so those are the three
Mm-hmm.
benefits that you're basically.
Well, those three have to align. Those are your criteria for knowing whether this is the right city for us or not.
Oh, I see.
Is the legislation in alignment? Yes. Are the economics viable for this? Yes. Are people going to be interested in this? Yes. Okay,
Hmm.
great. Let's go.
And does it save the retailers money in the long run?
We are working on something that this is what the 1 month test is really going to help us is to see what opportunities there are for that.
Hmm.
So we are quite excited about it. That's one area that we are going to be looking very closely on. I mean, with scale, 100%. Yeah. And obviously in the interim, it's quite hard to do that, right? So it's more about, right, well, if you can forecast for a year and you can get to a certain threshold, no brainer. But, what do the moms and pops and cafes that don't ever have that kind of volume,
Yeah,
how
of
do they
course.
fit into this network? So you kind of have to, yeah, we're working on this. But currently our pricing structure is so that it won't be more expensive, but it's not going to save you money right now.
Gotcha.
So it's about scale and taking it to that critical point, and how quickly can we take it there so that it actually is a more economically beneficial and exciting opportunity.
Yeah. That's I think that's one of the most important factors with anything in terms
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
sustainability. It
Oh
has to
yeah.
just make financial sense.
Oh yeah. Totally, 100%.
Yeah.
And we spent most of 2019 trying to really define what that looked like for a
Yeah.
lot of the customers who were very keen on CupClub or are keen, but for them the economics of it really have to stack up,
Yeah.
and almost price match. And that's very hard to do sometimes with something that has existed for almost a century, um, in a proven context, and is so widely distributed that naturally the pricing structure of that has really been properly boiled down to
Yeah.
something so minute, whereas we are starting right from the top, and we're kind of trying to make our way down into something that that can look similar to what they're expecting.
Yeah. Well, best of luck. I mean, I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah, we're all rooting for you. I'm really
Cool.
looking forward to hearing the results from Palo Alto.
For
Um,
sure.
and
Send
as
your buddies from the university in Palo Alto
absolutely,
across. Yeah, cool.
it would be funny if we're thinking of completely different universities, but I'm pretty sure we're on the same page.
And
I
then
think
we'll
there's
talk.
only one, as far as I know.
Same here.
Okay, good. Then,
Cool. For anyone's watching, you know where it's at.
yeah. And as we wrap up in the last minute or two here, two final questions. In addition to creating a reusable cup empire, what are some of the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis to be more environmentally sustainable that our listeners can take away and maybe start incorporating?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, so I cycle all the time. We actually don't even own a car.
Nice.
So that is possible. It's a bit, understandably, it's a lot harder if you're in the US.
Yeah.
I completely get that. So I do cycle everywhere. I have like a 10-month-old, and we kind of set up a whole reusable nappy station. So we don't use any disposable nappies or wipes or any of that. So I'm kind of a zero waste mom. We make all our food ourselves. So there's no like baby food packaging, or there's
Wow.
so much of that waste in that industry where you can squeeze it out of like foil lined packaging. I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't do it.
It's a bit
So
heartbreaking to see.
it's yeah. And what else do I do? Of course, I don't purchase any takeaway food other than what comes in 100% paper.
Mm,
So that does limit you a little bit, but it just means that you reserve those kinds of food for when you have a sit down dining experience instead.
yeah.
So most of my to go are baguettes from like food markets, or sandwiches that are prepared in paper. To go. What else do I do? And I'll take my reusable bowl or food boxes if I want to go to a food market. I'll just take that with me, and I'll say,
Oh,
"Can you
cool.
put it in here, please?" And they're very kind. They're more than happy to do that. And they don't have an issue with that.
Yeah.
And I've done that at supermarkets as well. So I'll take my own reusable containers, and if I go to the cheese counter, I'll say, "Can you please put the cheese in here?" And they'll start to try and wrap it up in like something for you. They're like, "Can you put that in paper for me?" And they're
Yeah.
like, "Okay." So then they'll do that, and so it's
Gotta
okay.
stick to your guns.
You got to stick to your
Yeah.
guns. It's not that hard. People usually do it with a smile. It's just something that you have to ask nicely. And I've never had resistance with it. I've
Yeah.
never had somebody say, "Oh God, no, we don't do that," or like, no one's that crazy
Yeah.
now. Now no one's that crazy. Of course, maybe a few years ago, people would have been like, "That's not how it works."
Yeah.
But certainly in the context of where we are now, people get it. So obviously, I'm never caught dead with a single-use cup.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, that'd be my weird guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
so weird. So I don't do
I just come
that.
home and throw them away.
Yeah. Having a single-use cup
Yeah.
party. No. So, and I do shame my friends and family all the time as well, wherever I see it. And I do that from, a good place. I don't do that to make them feel terrible, but I'll just call them out. If I'll see something on Instagram where they're having lunch and there's just a sea of packaging everywhere, I'll just be like, are you serious? Could
Yeah.
you not just grab something that was not going to come to you like this? Or so
Yeah, it just takes a little bit of planning and foresight.
there's a
And
bit of
just,
planning and
yeah.
foresight for sure. And I'm trying to get to my next, my first ski trip. I'm trying to plan so that I actually get there by train. So there is a way for me to do that when I'm traveling within Europe. It's harder, obviously, to do it internationally, but where you can, try and organize it. And I know very good friends of mine also in sustainability, who do that, who will, it's just a mindset. So the
Yeah.
idea of getting on a train and then a boat, you just have to think you've already started your journey from that moment, as
Yeah,
opposed
exactly.
to when you get there, which is kind of how we've crafted our lives. When we get on the plane, we're like, we're not there yet, we're not there yet. Our holiday doesn't start until you get to your destination.
Hmm.
Whereas in when you're getting on a train, it's about the process, the journey.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely love, and I love trains so much, and I've really
They're
come to
amazing.
appreciate them since I've
Yeah,
moved to the
they're
UK,
amazing.
because they really are amazing, and it's really true. I mean, somehow when you're on a plane, you're just thinking, I'm not there yet. How much longer until we're there? But
A
once
lot
you
of
sit down on a
people.
train, yeah, it's
Mm,
peaceful, it's calm, the rocking is really nice, and uh, it feels like, okay, holiday has started. We're on the train. I mean, it's stress
yeah,
free.
yeah, that's true. I mean, planes are not designed. There's nothing that you can really truly interact with at that high altitude, other than clouds. You're not looking at the world go by. You don't see people. You don't see animals, livestock, or
Yeah, little
it's
villages
not.
or
It's
anything like that.
yeah. So it's harder to really connect, other than maybe when you're takeoff and landing, which is a small window. And
Yeah,
so it's very introspective. It's not external at all. It's more like what's going on the plane. When's my food coming?
yeah,
And
exactly. I
and
can't
that's
believe they have this movie still.
yeah, it's not as enjoyable, and the air isn't quite as fresh
Yeah.
as you'd like. So yeah, so trains. That's going to be my thing. Yeah, I'm very much open to thinking about how we can, think about more and more things. It can get a bit daunting, so you just have to do it incrementally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to hear that you practice what you preach.
Yeah.
And the very final question is, where can we find you and learn more about the work that you're doing for the people who are interested in following you or getting updates?
Online? Do you mean from social? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
social media, the website.
Twitter handle, Safia Qureshi. I talk a lot on Twitter, and LinkedIn is a good place as well. Yeah, follow our new blog series. So we've started interviewing for 2020 some really amazing supporters of CupClub who are in the industry. So I
Oh,
just
cool.
interviewed the head of CSR at John Lewis and Partners,
Wow.
Bennett. And there'll be more as well. So I'll do one every month and release that, so you can see that content and read
Yeah,
up
that's
about
cool.
it. But yeah, there'll be lots of new updates happening online. So for sure, if you want to figure out what I'm up to, but we generally will be posting on our own handle, so cup_club on Twitter as well, and
Hmm.
Instagram. So you'll hear more about this university that we're launching at from Feb onwards.
Yeah. Awesome. And for anyone who's interested in seeing the website, it's just cupclub.com.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
Cool.
Safia, thank you so much for your time. As
Oh,
I
it's a
said, we're all rooting
pleasure.
for you, and I hope that your 5 weeks in Palo Alto end up being very fruitful.
Yeah, no,
And
it's going to be fun. Come on down and see us.
yeah,
Awesome.
excellent. Thanks so much. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, give us a 5-star rating. And also, please subscribe, whether on your podcast app or on YouTube. And that way you can be the first to know about new episodes. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.